Diddy was just sentenced to 4.5 years in prison after spending his entire adult life torturing women and children. The most powerful men in the world are doing everything they can possibly think of to prevent the Epstein list from coming out because they have spent decades abusing women and children. A rich and powerful pastor and Trump's spiritual advisor just got carted off to prison after sexually abusing a female child who is now in her 40s and has been fighting decades for justice for herself and likely other victims. The Catholic sex scandal in the church that was broken wide open and documented by the movie Spotlight indicted however many priests for sexually abusing children and women. Trump's wife mysteriously fell down the stairs right before she was supposed to testify against him, and he buried her in an unmarked grave on his golf course. Will Smith has publicly admitted, not once, not twice, not even 3 times, multiple times, that he was not a good husband to Jada, and that in his pursuit of becoming one of the biggest movie stars of all time, he abandoned her to drown under the weight of motherhood and abandoned her own career in order to be a good wife to him. He has openly spoken about this. He has admitted it in his book, and yet people still hate Jada and blame her for causing Will pain. Okay. Kanye West has been openly insane for at least a decade now. He has named his 12-year-old daughter as one of his top enemies, publicly harassed and abused his wife, particularly when she was dating Pete Davidson, threw away all of her clothes that she had spent years collecting and loved, and broke her heart because he wanted to dress her up like a doll. He screamed in her mother's face, screamed at his wife, screamed at all of his female cousins, never screamed at a man like that, though. And if he did, he was quickly checked and backed down easily. Lamar Odom is a crackhead and a whoremonger. And yet, people spend all of their energy coming after the Kardashian women, who have handled all of this with grace, mind you, and don't seem to do anything but make their money and raise their children. But the Kardashians are witches who are ruining every black man that enters their life. All right. It is commonly accepted behavior for boys to enact psychological warfare on girls, for men to enact psychological warfare on women, pretend to love them, pretend to care about them so that they can gain access to them and use and exploit their bodies and their energy. And people dismiss boys' behavior as boys will be boys, that's just game. And girls' pain as, well, what did you expect? You should have picked better. You should have chosen better. O.J. Simpson murdered Nicole, his wife, in cold blood, got off scot-free because of a team of male lawyers. Women everywhere, of all ages, are starting just now to wake up to the fact that they have spent the entirety of their marriage mothering their husbands, and that their husbands have been exploiting their labor and their love to subsidize self-care because their husbands are codependent man babies. And women have been wasting their entire lives being mothers to grown-ass men who don't love them but need them. Okay. The black community chose Clarence Thomas over Anita Hill. They supported Clarence Thomas, dismissed Anita Hill. Ayesha Curry has spoken out publicly about how she regrets choosing motherhood and being a wife so early in her life because now those roles are irreparably fused with her identity. And now she's having an identity crisis in her 40s because she doesn't know who she is outside of being Steph Curry's wife. And people are calling her ungrateful and saying that she's jealous of her husband. What do all of these things have in common? What do all of the things that I just named have in common? They drove Britney crazy. They called Beyonce a witch. They killed Marilyn Monroe. What do all of these things have in common? I'll let you answer that for yourself. I'm not going to spoon feed you the conclusion, but I will give you a hint. It's a lot more insidious and complicated than people just hate women. When the first wave of feminism started, there was a parallel counter effort to fight against that wave of feminism. There is always a parallel counter effort to every progressive movement. It doesn't matter what it is. First wave feminism started in the 1830s, about a decade or two after women started working outside of the home. They started working outside of the home because the Industrial Revolution was starting. And so textile mills needed workers. And textile mills were made up of 80 to 90% of women workers, low-wage, poor women who would work in insane conditions to make 25 cents after 16-hour days. They would wake up at 5 a.m., they would stay at work until 7 p.m. and have a half hour for lunch and dinner each. And they would do all of this work standing in an enclosed room with cotton filling the air and fumes from oil lamps heating them. Terrible working conditions. However, for the first time, women were starting to work outside of the home. What did this mean? Women also, they weren't just working outside of the home as textile workers. They were working outside of the home. They owned taverns. They were bakers. They were seamstresses. They were shopkeepers, innkeepers, tin workers, brewers, tanners, rope makers, lumberjacks, printers, morticians, woodworkers, staymakers. Women had plenty of jobs outside the home. Women have always worked. But when women started working outside of the home, men started freaking out. Men are always freaking out when it comes to women. Why did men start freaking out? Because their physical control over women started to slip. It was really, really easy to control your wife when she was cooped up in the house all day. It became harder to do so when she could go out, join the world, and make some money. Notice I didn't say make her own money, because in these days, in the 19th century, any penny a woman made was automatically deemed to belong to her husband. Men owned us. Whether you were black, whether you were white, you were owned by men, period. And so when women started working outside the home and men started feeling their physical controls slip away, what did they do? They started implementing ideological controls over women. There was complex movement in different directions. Now, women were being pulled out of the house and into industrial life, while at the same time there was pressure for women to stay home where they were more easily controlled. The outside world, breaking into the solid cubicle of the home, created fears and tensions in the dominant male world, and brought forth ideological controls to replace the loosening family controls. The idea of the woman's place, promulgated by men, was accepted by many women. Alongside the growing feminist movement, the very first wave of feminism, there grew a counter movement that was dedicated to reminding a woman of her place in society. But I want to point out, so what we are stepping into right now in 2025 is fifth wave feminism. That wave of feminism is a decolonization of the mind, but I'll get to that later. First wave feminism was simply women trying to convince everyone around them that they were human beings. That was it. That was it. Rights were out of the question. Equality, absurd, outrageous to the common mind. First wave feminism was women trying to remind people that they were human beings. That's where we had to start, from literally nothing. In Chapter 6 of Howard Zinn's A People History of the United States, titled The Intimately Oppressed, we start learning about women's history.